here are the three messes. The three messes are that whenever a student comes into your classroom, or maybe if you're a counselor comes into your office, one of the things that we know about students is that nobody is perfect, and almost every single one of them has something in their lives, some kind of a flaw, right? We all have flaws. I call this the mess. We're all in a mess. And students like for us to either show them the mess that we're in, right? So that way we can relate to them. The more they can relate to us, the more we can build trust with them, right? So we either show them our mess or we help them where they're at in their mess, right? So that's number one, build trust. Why is this important? It's important because you, as a guidance counselor or a principal or maybe a teacher, one of the things that you need is you need trust so that they can be open to you. Because what are you in their lives at that moment? You're the messenger. You're the messenger in their lives. And because you're the messenger, they need to be able to trust you. See, I don't think you'll build trust faster if you can show them some kind of a mess that you have been in, right? They want to relate to you. Now, once you're a messenger, now you have their attention. So now you can relate to whatever it is subject that you want to give to them. If you're a counselor, now you're able to counsel them, right? If you're a teacher, now you're able to teach them. For me, I'm a speaker. I'm there to give a message. Once I show them my mess, they're open to the messenger, me. After that, they'll be open to the message. And all of it will build and come back to trust. One of these three things are going to happen in the lives of students as you teach them, as they come through your doors. So we're going to go back to this, but I wanted to start with that. The reason why is because as soon as students walk onto your campus and go into your classes, one of the things that I've noticed is that cultural norms really do dictate behavior. In other words, something that has gone on in their lives culturally, I'm not talking about culture as basically like I'm Hispanic, right? And it could be, but I'm talking about like beliefs. I'm talking about things that are happening in their environment, right, at home. Whatever culture that is going on at home, more than likely that's going to dictate their behavior when they come into your classes. And so you got to recognize that. So as a teacher, as an educator, you got to make sure that you understand, okay, what culture is, what's the culture of this kid, right? When they show up to school, if you know the parents, you understand why they're like they are, right? What is the culture like at their home? The reason I say this is because whenever I speak, I'm a prevention kind of speaker. So whenever I speak in a school, more than likely they're going to bring me in for drug prevention or bully prevention. And one of the things that I tell educators is, look, whenever it comes down to being picked on at school, one of the things that I've noticed about kids is that the classic bully, like the kid that we know picks on other people, they were actually a victim first. In fact, the wording that I like to say is that, sometimes people who have been hurt, they hurt other people, right? Hurt people. And those of us who have counselor training, you know what I'm talking about, right? You don't get perfect people. In fact, you get people who are what? They're in a mess. So they're in a mess, they're hurting, right? So hurt people tend to hurt people, right? So then you get to relate to them and you get to say, you as a messenger get to say, hey, here's some of the hurt that I've gone through, and you relate to them first, and now they trust you. And now you can give them some kind of a message that will help them, right? And I give a lot of different messages to kids when it comes down to it, because I know what happens is if kids aren't able to talk to me, if kids don't talk to you, let's just say you're a counselor, if a kid can't talk to you, then that kid will one day act out. In other words, what students don't talk out, eventually they're going to act out. So us as educators, we need to be able to position ourselves to be in a place where we meet them in their mess. And then once we meet them, we build trust, and then they're open to us, and then they'll let us know, hey, here's what's happening in my life. And once we get a kid who is starting to open up, right, the walls come down, and now they open up, now we get less kids in our schools that are acting out. I know this. I've been into juveniles, I've been to alternative schools, and I speak to students at that level, and I sit down with them and I talk to them, why are you here? I present them that question, why are you here? And more than likely, they say something about their lives that hurt them, right? My parents got divorced when I was in elementary school. Okay, that's a pretty hurtful thing to go through. My dad left when I was 9 years old. Wow. And then I always ask, well, who have you told about that? And more than likely they'll say, well, nobody. See, what you don't talk out, eventually you'll act out. So when I walk into an alternative school, what I see is kids who have acted out. They just need somebody to talk to. That's the end result, right? Another thing that I like to teach students is when it comes to social skills, right? One of the big things that's going around nowadays is social and emotional learning. It's a real big term. We're actually, bully prevention is actually going into more social emotional learning. We need to teach kids social and emotional skills to be able to go through school, right? This is how we help them build resilience. So I try to make it so simple. I tell kids, look, if you focus on how people treat you, right, the way you treat me, if my whole focus is on how you treat me, then I'm automatically a victim from the get-go, right? Because that's my focus. My focus is how am I going to be treated today? What if someone treats me bad? What if someone treats me good? What if, you become a victim? However, I tell kids, look, what if we focus on how you treat other people? What happens is when that switch starts to happen, what kids do is now they start to influence other kids. Why? Because now what they're doing is they're focusing on how am I going to treat other people, right? This is why I teach the golden rule. What is the golden rule? It's treating, how are you going to treat other people, right? Treating others the way you want to be treated. And I always ask students, how do you like to be treated? Well, I get words like with respect or nice or kind, right? Well, that's the golden rule. Okay, well, let's focus on that. Once you focus on showing respect to other people, even your teachers, which is how we train people, right? It's our job to train others the way we want to be treated. Now, when we focus on that, we no longer become victims, but now we become influencers. How amazing would it be to have your campus full of students who are influencers? Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We have to train people how to do that. We got to train our students about social and emotional learning. We got to teach them those social skills to be able to come onto campus. But we take the easy way out, don't we, a lot of times? What do we do in our schools these days? Hey, if someone picks on you, let me know and I'll take care of it for you, right? What kind of learning is that? Kid doesn't learn. That what the kid learns is how to depend on other people, right? We don't want that. We want it to empower kids. And we do that by showing them how they can treat other people. That's what the golden rule is. The golden rule is an empowerment tool. Once they implement it, they become a leader on campus. There's 3 ways in which I help students work through issues. Okay? Now, if a kid comes up to me with an issue that they're having, number one of the things that I do is I empathize, right? I try to understand where they're coming from. Say, kid gets picked on, I'm like, I'm so sorry that happened. First of all, what happened? Oh, someone called me a name. Okay. Well, the number one way to diffuse it is to ask a simple question, right? Do you believe it? Do you believe that name that they called you? And more than likely, they're going to say no, right? But as long as you're there and you understand what they're going through, they feel affirmed in whatever it is that they're trying to show you, right? The second thing that I do is I encourage them, right? I show support. What's the best way to show support? You give them a reply, right? I'm so sorry they called you that name. In fact, I think the opposite. I think you're amazing. In fact, when you walk through those doors, like you light up the room, right? However you want to support people and encourage people, you do that. And the third thing that I do is I always try to look for a way to empower somebody. Listen, the reason why you're having training today is because something is going to pop out at you that you're going to be empowered to go back to your school and implement right away. I guarantee you that. Why? Because that's what training is, right? And what happens is when people aren't empowered, they don't have the confidence in their work. Would you be a counselor if somebody didn't train you to be a counselor? No. You'll show up to school and let me tell you, you'll be frustrated the first time somebody comes into your office because you haven't been trained on how to give guidance. However, when someone empowers you and you're empowered, now you have more confidence to do your job. Listen, one of the best things that we can do for students is to be able to empower them and give them the confidence to be able to solve their own social issues. Now, I do a lot with conflict resolution. I'm certified in the state of Texas in conflict resolution. And one of the things that I always do is I always make sure to train educators about the different personality groups. And you've done these, maybe you've done them on yourself, but I want to encourage you today to look through the lens of some of those, okay? Now, one of those could be DISC. I use DISC. It's one of the easiest to remember, and it's one of the easiest to teach, really. And so the reason I use DISC is because this is one way in which you can help students and you identify what their personality is, and then you help them resolve conflict based on their personality. Okay. Once you understand that, then when your kids come into your new school year, new kids, you're like, okay, who are the D's, the I's, the S's, who are the C's in the room? And once you know the information, now you know how to encourage them, right? Now you know how to show empathy towards them. Now you know how to empower them, right? Or now you know how to help them through their mess. Now you know how to be a messenger to them. Or now you know what kind of message they need to hear in that moment. Why? Because you know their personality. So let's go through a couple of those. For example, like whenever it comes to conflict resolution, one of the first things that you'll notice is that D's always seem to attack, right? These are like these type A personalities. And let me tell you something, like if you have a principal on campus who has a D tendencies, they're gonna want to attack, right? Now, an effective response is to stay focused, right? Focus on the relationship. A lot of times D's, what they do is they run over people to get a job done, right? I need to get the job done. Oh, I'm going somewhere. And what happens is they run over people. Forget about people at the moment. Let me focus on getting the task done. However, if you focus on the relationship, then you won't leave bodies behind, right? As they say. The I's, they want to expose, they want to blame. This is like one of their natural responses that they have whenever it comes to resolving conflict. Now, an effective response to blaming people is to make others look good, right? To take responsibility for their actions. The S's, they want to support. They automatically, naturally will submit. So when you see S's in your room, man, what they're going to want to do is show me the rules, and I want to be loyal to the rules. I'll be loyal to the teacher, and I'll submit under your authority. That's a natural response. Now, an effective response is to care enough to confront. See, they try to avoid conflict at all costs, right? And so you want to help them get to the point where they care enough to confront. And C's want to criticize, right? They're ready to say what's going on. This is a natural thing for them to do. You have an event, they're automatically saying, what are the things that went wrong with that event? Well, first we need to help them to examine themselves, and maybe doing the DISC profile with them will kind of help identify some of those things. Now, here are some questions that you can reword to whenever you tell people something. Now, when you're working with kids, you always want to make sure to make a deposit in their lives. Very important. Especially when you're doing this. When you want to have them be open to the messenger, you make a deposit. You know, telling them about your mess, that's kind of like making a deposit, right? Oh, you shared some vulnerable information with me. Then guess what? You just made a deposit in my life. Now I'm open to the messenger. So make a deposit in their life. That could be a high five. That could be simple as, hey, that's a nice shirt you have on. Man, I love those pants. Those are nice. You know, something, whatever it is, however it is that you can encourage that kid. Some kids are emotionally on empty, and one high five will take that kid from having a bad day, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, they're probably like at a 2 to maybe having a 7. How amazing would it be for a kid to have kids on campus that all walking around with 7s, 8s, 9s, maybe even 10s, all because educators decided, man, we're going to make deposits in the lives of our students. That's how influential making a deposit is in the life of a kid. Here are some rewarding questions that you can ask students, and I call them deposits. For example, in relation to the DISC that we were talking about, is there anything I can do to help you accomplish blank? Remember, these are go-getters. They want to get something done. So if you confront one of them and say, how can I help you accomplish a task? They're going to be like, oh my goodness, my teacher's on my side. She's helping me get to another level, right? My counselor is helping me get into this college, right? We all need that one adult in our lives who can see us not for what we are today, but for what we're going to be in the future. And that's what a deposit does. A deposit helps a kid say, this teacher, this principal doesn't see me just as a student here on campus. This principal sees me as somebody who's going to do great and influential things out there when I'm no longer here. That's the kind of training that we need to get and implement in our schools. For I's, you can ask them anything, but you want to do it in front of people. In other words, you want to give them a platform. Why? Because it's natural. They'll be excited. It'll be like a deposit, right? It'll be like, hey, why don't you come to the front and tell us about what happened this weekend? Remember you were telling me about that awesome thing that happened? Why don't you come to the front and go ahead and, you give them a platform. Once you do that, they're like, man, that is amazing. Thank you so much for putting me in front of people and letting me share something that was good and natural, right? The S's, they want to identify one of their strengths and then ask, how did you develop that ability? And the reason why is because S's a lot of times don't see their own strengths, right? What they do naturally, they think, oh, this is just natural. But other people who have different personalities, they're like, man, how did you develop that? You start asking those kind of questions, they're going to feel very encouraged. And then the C's, what would you change about today's experience? Okay, instead of just letting them be critical behind your back, which they're going to do anyway, right? Then you give them an opportunity to say, now you get to be influential. What could I have changed? How could I have done something better today? Now, whenever we work with students, we need to understand one thing. It's almost their responsibility to push the boundaries on us, right? The rules that we have in place, right? The process, the policies, whatever it is that you have in place. Like students walk onto your campus and the first thing they think is, what can I get away with, right? What can how far can I get close enough to where I don't fall over the edge, right? Before I don't get written up, right? As long as you present that, that's what they're thinking, right? They're the boundaries. And it's okay for us to have healthy boundaries. We have to set them. But it's our job as educators, it's our job to hold the boundaries on our students and hold them to it. Because I believe if you're strict, strict equals love. So if you can be strict with your students, then I want to make sure that you know they're going to feel loved. A lot of times teenagers think, my parents are strict, or my teacher, man, she's so strict. But you know what? At the end of the day, they feel encouraged. Why? Because strict equals love. And strict will keep order. If the teacher walks in and she has no control over the classroom, then guess what? Some of the kids in the room, they're going to be frustrated. Why? Because it's chaos. Kids want to come, they want order. Even though you come up and you tell them, hey, here are the rules. They're like, nah, I don't want to hear the rules. They still want order. They don't want chaos. They want to do well. So we got to position them in a way where they can do well, create that environment for them. Our kids have so much information. I mean, even some of the material that we teach them in our schools, they could just log on online, right? They could take courses online. They could just Google or search whatever it is, the information that they need. They're on information overload. They have so much information, right? They always have a phone on them, right? They're ready. It's like, man, I got a computer right here. Man, they just type in whatever search. They get information in an instant. I believe kids are in information overload. What kids need is wisdom. They're on wisdom underload. They don't have enough wisdom. You know, wisdom is information plus knowing how to use the information so that I can be successful in life. That's what wisdom is. Wisdom will keep you from doing the bad things. Wisdom is when you tell a kid, look, this is what I want you to say yes to in life, right? You show him what he could be, not what he is, but what he could be. And then you show them how to stay away from that, right? You show them what their yes is in life. That's wisdom. Once a kid has wisdom, then he can stay away from the things that don't keep him in line with his yes, right? If the yes is big enough, the no's will come. I don't just teach kids to say no to drugs. I want to teach kids what to say yes to. Because I believe if I could tell a kid what to say yes to, the no's will come. That is wisdom. See, a lot of our kids are walking around and they're just on information overload and they lack wisdom in their life. And we have a unique opportunity to what? This message can also be wisdom. See, but we can never get this far unless we start here. And we move along down to the bottom. And once we're here, the message could be the wisdom that those kids need to hear from you. I want you to remember this as educators. We have a huge, huge responsibility. Why? Because all day long we're with students, and those students hear our voices. Not only do they hear our voices, but we're the messengers in their lives. So they hear messages that we give them. So our voice is huge to them. Now they have external voices that none of us can control, right? Parents, teachers, maybe grandparents. We have no idea. And I know sometimes as educators, sometimes you got to start from zero every day because of those external variables in which you can control. But when they're in your presence, You have a unique opportunity to be that voice in their lives. Because let me tell you, when kids aren't around you, they're replaying the tapes. I know. I still replay some of the tapes that one of my teachers said to me. And here's one of the tapes that I play. Fabian, you are somebody. Not only that, but Fabian, you're a teacher. She told me, I don't know what you're running away from, but I know that you're going to be a great leader one day, and you're going to teach a lot of people. I'll never forget when she told me that, Mrs. Bernstein. I was in 10th grade. And you know what, till this day, I still keep in contact with Mrs. Bernstein. Why? Because I replay those tapes over and over in my mind. When she said that to me, she made a deposit in my life. And because she made a deposit, I have an S personality. There I am using the disc again, right? I have an S personality. Now I was loyal to the information. It wasn't just information, but it was actually wisdom. And because I listened to the wisdom, then guess what? Today I became an influencer. I had influence. I decided to stay away from the way people treat me, and I decided to, you know what? I'm going to focus on how I'm going to treat other people. And once I started to do that, I became an influencer. Ladies and gentlemen, the students in your lives are listening to your voice. Will you be the voice in their lives that they need, that they'll listen to at the end of the day? Or when they're in that predicament that they can't get out of, will they hear your voice? Is your voice loud enough? Our goal today was to make sure that you have the proper tools and start to implement some of the skills that we learned today so that you can help kids when they're in their mess, so that they can be open to you as the messenger in their lives, so that you can then pass on a message that they'll replay in their minds over and over, and now you become very influential in their lives. Thank you so much for having me today at your training. I do this in schools, I do this for regions, I do this for teachers. And I love it because even what I teach, I know goes further than what we do in this room. Because I know it's going to be a lasting impact in the lives of one of those kids in your school that you're going to go back to and you're going to touch their lives. So thank you so much for what you do in the lives of students. We need more of you in this room. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate y'all.